Hey there, beautiful. I wanted to talk about kindness and how important it is to maintaining a a type of loving kindness towards people, even in the face of aggression. And it's not an easy task. It can get very complicated. But if you're on the spiritual path and you're walking the line and you're becoming more and more aware of your triggers and your traumas and your red flags and green flags, you'll notice that you don't get as upset over the triggers that you used to have. And that's good. That's progress. Your ego is breaking down. It's um, it's not dying. It's just being honed. That's one of the things that you have to constantly make sure of is that you're not trying to kill the ego. You're not trying to get rid of it. You're trying to hone it in a way that is more suggestive of your higher self, your inner self, your truer self. And as we go through this process, it does get easier. It gets less complicated, and the feelings, the pain body doesn't come up as often. So, what you're trying to do is you're trying to get back to what it was that you were before you took on all of this responsibility, you know? We all have these weird little traumas from childhood and from relationships, friendships, work dynamics. They're masks that you wear. You get this idea that if I act this particular way with these type of people, they can't get too close or they can't get close enough to hurt me. The thing is there is no real hurt. These are just perceptions based on observations that weren't clearly felt. So a little bit about me. I grew up in an abusive family. My mom was childhood diabetic, and that led to bipolar disorder and schizophrenia. And my stepfather was a bit of a megalomaniac. um, he was a man's man. Don't cry. Don't have feelings. Shove all that stuff down. And he didn't like me because for a lot of reasons, because I was nothing like him. I love music. I've been playing guitar for most of my life, and he didn't understand. Thought it was a waste of time. And I love music of all sorts. And I was also a bit of an artist. I like drawing, and I loved writing. I loved everything that he didn't. He was a football guy, sports and everything. The only sports that I got into were like when I was younger. I was into freestyle biking and skateboarding. Um, and those were the two major sport activities that I did, and he didn't understand those either. So everything everything I was doing at the time was a waste of time. So there was no way to build a healthy relationship with somebody that is so rigid in their own beliefs that they can't give someone else's beliefs a chance. Um, so that caused a lot of trauma my early years, and thank God for my grandparents, because they were amazing, wonderful human beings that taught me how to accept who I was and how to feel a little bit more deeply. Um, so I coped when I was young by overeating. Yeah, I was kind of a chubby kid, and I didn't accept it. You know, you don't want to be the chubby kid. You know what I mean? So it's a lot better now in this day and age than it was in the 80s and 90s. You just weren't accepted. You were mocked and messed with and all that because people find your weakness, and that's your weakness, right? So how I dealt with those early year traumas were through, intense observation, shadow work, a lot of it, and realizing that in general, we're all kind of lost. We don't know what we're doing. Nobody really knows what we're doing, you know? And as sad as it is, it's also kind of beautiful, because in that is hope. Hope for everybody across the board. Not just me, not just you. All people have hope. That doesn't mean that you should give so much of yourself that there's no self left because you're helping others more than you're helping yourself. All this work starts right here, this area, and then up and then down through the chakras. Um, you will notice, and I'm sure a lot of you have had this experience, that as you release traumas, your body becomes looser. You get more relaxed. You get calmer. Things that used to trigger you just come off like water off a duck's feathers. It gets so much easier, to the point where you kind of are amazed that you're not being triggered, you know? So as time goes on and you start releasing more and more traumas, your meditations get deeper, your yoga gets better, your heart gets bigger, and you start looking through divine, I want to say divine eyes, but it's not like some superpower. It's just you start looking at people for what they really are. Just we're little kids, we're children in big bodies, and we don't know what's happening, and we don't understand ourselves or others, and we're worried about judgment and what people might think of us. And that gets into my next subject, which is discernment over judgment. Judgment is a way of looking at people to make yourself feel better, make your ego bigger. Discernment is knowing what is for you and what is not for you. So you can look with discerning eyes and no judgment, because there's no need. We're all in a mess. We're all digging our own holes. So from all of that, once you kind of get this idea of the difference between judgment and discernment, that's where forgiveness starts coming in. Because you realize that your parents didn't really have the toolkit to give you to help you master your emotional body, because they weren't given that. Their parents didn't do it. And that's what generational trauma is, at least for me, is the fact that nobody is really given enough information and enough compassion to face ourselves. So you got to do it now. I mean, you don't have to, but it's better than not. It's better than getting stuck in the downward spiral that we all go through. So, as you go along, you'll start choosing your words a little more wisely. You'll stop using words that are negative and have a dark connotation, like hate, anger, greed, pain. They're just things that pop up, and that's fine. Those are intrusive thoughts, and accept them. Yeah, that was an intrusive thought, but that's not who I am, because it's not who you are. You're beautiful, and you're making a difference every day in your own life, and therefore it will just naturally affect other people's lives. The pain and the trauma that a lot of people go through hits me in the heart. A lot of people are going through so much, and they have no idea how to get out of it. And that's where your compassion and your kindness can come in. There's a Bukowski poem that I'm going to kind of ad lib and probably butcher, but it basically goes, we're just caught up in all these trivialities, you know, that we're going to die at the end, and we're just caught up in all of this nonsense that doesn't mean anything and has no value, and nobody's being helped because of it. So I didn't ad lib it, I completely butchered it. But I love Bukowski, and I get to the point where I read the feeling behind it rather than just the words. So I don't memorize stuff like that. If I want to, I'll open that book up and I'll go read it again. But it makes a great point that we get caught up in stuff that doesn't make any difference at all. Like nothing. Like, you know, watching sports games or being drawn into the political arena or the financial arena. You know, it's about friends and family and loved ones and the little tiny gestures that you do every day. The smile that you give somebody as you're walking by that might just change their day. It's those small things, how you raise your children, how you're giving, how you're caring. Not to a fault, not to put yourself on a butcher block, but how you care about people in a way that benefits you and them at the same time, because we're all the same thing. All of this, the trees behind me, the chair I'm sitting in, the hat I'm wearing, it's all the same thing. It all comes from the same place. Whether we build it or we don't, it's all intrinsic to the source. So you are a loved divine creature, just like all of the other loved and divine creatures on this hunk of dirt. So be nicer to people. But start off by being nicer to you. You deserve it. Nobody else is going to do it for you. I mean, we're not all these enlightened beings walking around full of love and compassion. But it can start somewhere. It can start with you. And that's the most important place for it to start. It starts with you. You control what you do. Instead of react, respond. You go, no, that's not for me. I don't need that. You can walk away from things. You don't have to sit there and take it. I did that way too much as a kid. I took too much grief from my stepfather. Way too much grief from my stepfather. It wasn't that he was a bad person. He was trying to teach me something that he was not capable of teaching. So you are your own guru, okay? This is important. You get to decide what your daily practice is, what your diet, what your food intake is. You get to decide whether you need a dopamine rush or not. Whatever is justifying your existence can be dropped. You don't have to do alcohol. You don't have to do weed. You don't have to smoke cigarettes. You don't have to drink, you know, a 1,300 calorie coffee at, you know, from Starbucks. You don't have to do those things. The social norms are just, they're nonsense. They're rubbish. It's trends, it's pop culture. It's just nonsense. Sit with yourself. Love yourself. Become more embedded in who you really are. And stop pretending to be something that you're not. It doesn't matter. All that stuff, you know, it's just hyperbole. You know, it's just nonsense for the sake of nonsense. And you're better than that. You know you're better than that. If you didn't, you wouldn't be here watching this right now. There are no coincidences. Everything happens exactly the way it needs to, wherever you're at. And when you start getting your head in a place that is more comfortable and relaxed and calm, you start manifesting the things that you really want. Because let's be honest, we don't know what we really want. If we really knew what we really wanted, there wouldn't be, $1 million sports cars. There wouldn't be, 18-room mansions and, 18 bathrooms and 12 garages. It wouldn't exist because it wouldn't be necessary. You don't need that for one person. It's just ridiculous. Like, if we walked into someone's house and they were hoarding newspapers and it was wall to wall as far as you could see, newspapers going back decades, we would say that they had a mental illness. But when it comes to digital currency and paper money and gold and possessions, we go, ooh, they're successful. The point is, live your life every day for yourself so you can also live your life every day for everybody else. That's powerful. Help where you can. Get yourself out there, get out of your comfort zone, do the things that scare you about yourself. There is beauty in that. There's love in that. There's kindness in that. We are not male and female, and we are combinations of both. We just don't want to admit it because society tells us that we have to look a particular way or say particular things or be interested in certain things. And I'm telling you, it's not real. It's fake. It's an illusion. None of this is real. The only thing that has firm reality is how you respond to the situations that you're in. Now, that's not saying that if you're in a war zone and you get shot, you're not going to feel it, because you are. But you don't have to succumb to past experiences to decide your future, because neither one of those exist. You're only in the right now, and you've always only been right now. I really appreciate your guys' comments, your likes, and your subscriptions, and that helps me kind of navigate where I should go and what I should concentrate more on. And I love every one of you. You're good people. You can do what you're setting yourself up to do. Have confidence. You are way more powerful than you understand. Way more powerful. But as always, much love.